It's really scary. So if you're scared, thinking next time you get on a plane that your pilot might not, in fact, have been chosen or recruited or hired because he or she was best for the job, but because they fit a particular demographic bracket, if that freaks you out, wait till you find out what's going on in medicine. And I just invite you, any of you who are in the medical profession at any level, I invite you to tell us all the truth, and I hope that you will fill up the comments below with your perspectives. Well, it's an interesting conversation that people have been having the last week. Elon Musk has been duking it out with Mark Cuban on X, in fact, about this. It's an interesting conversation people are having about DEI and hiring preferences, racial and gender hiring preferences and recruitment preferences in our airlines, and the possible danger that could pose to people's safety, people who travel, people who fly. Well, that is a great conversation to be having, but wait till you learn what's been going on in the medical field. And there's an excellent book that came out several years ago called The Diversity Delusion by Heather McDonald, who is an incredible scholar, and a number of you probably know her work. And what this did, before it was fashionable to diss DEI and to criticize it, what this did is it basically explored DEI and dismantled it and showed how DEI was negatively affecting different sectors of our society and different professions. And so she spent a great deal of time in this book. I recommend you get it. She spent a great deal of time in this book talking about the effects of DEI in hiring and admissions, how these things are affecting medicine. And it's scary, y'all. It's really scary. So if you're scared, thinking next time you get on a plane that your pilot might not, in fact, have been chosen or recruited or hired because he or she was best for the job, but because they fit a particular demographic bracket, if that freaks you out, wait till you find out what's going on in medicine. Because except for those of us who are immortal, most of us have to rely on doctors, physicians, hospitals, systems, drugs at some point in our lives, yes? And it is very scary. So look, there's an article that you should read when you finish here. Okay, it's called The Corruption of Medicine. It's by Heather McDonald. It came out in the summer of 2022, so this is still very recent stuff. And she talked about different ways, shocking ways, that medicine is being corrupted by DEI ideology, DEI initiatives, and DEI preferences in medical school admissions, in promotion, etc. So this is what she says, all right? She sums it up this way before I get into some specifics. She says that DEI now has changed the direction of medical research. It has changed the composition of medical school faculty and the composition of students admitted to medical school. It has changed the curriculum at medical school. It has changed the criteria for hiring researchers and publishing research. She says it has changed the standards of measuring performance. It has basically brought about a wave of mandatory advocacy training for physicians who are now expected to, in the words of a strategic plan by the American Medical Association, expected to, quote, dismantle white supremacy and other forms of inequality. So what are some of the ways in which DEI ideology has affected medicine? Well, let's just talk about, for instance, methods of measuring knowledge, skills, performance. So at all levels of the medical experience and in the profession, if you want to enter into the profession, you have to take various tests. And so for medical school admission, generally speaking, although we'll get into this in a moment, it's being devalued, but the MCAT. And then there's a series of tests as you're going through the medical school process, and then there's a test to determine residency. Apparently Heather McDonald calls it the step 1 test, and so forth. And so basically what's happening with a number of these is that they are being de-emphasized. So for example, the MCAT, now there are a lot of medical schools that are de-emphasizing the MCAT in importance for admissions or waiving it altogether in an effort to get more of certain minorities, not Asians, but blacks and Latinos, into medical school. And so the MCAT has been de-emphasized or completely waived for many medical schools. Also, I didn't realize this, even before these recent measures to de-emphasize the MCAT was already being evaluated by numerous teams of people every year, every time it comes out, to purge it of any kind of racial bias. And so, and I didn't know this either, but apparently you have sample test takers who will take the MCAT before it's released. And then any questions that white students do proportionately better on than black students, those are automatically purged, automatically from the MCAT. So this was stuff that was already going on, but now what you have as of late, as of the last several years, as with a lot of standardized tests, right, is this move to de-emphasize them or to waive them altogether. The problem with that, of course, is that standardized tests are one of the few ways of objectively measuring knowledge across the board. And it's not just the MCAT. There's a test to determine residency, or to help determine residency, apparently. Residency in the process, it's a part of the process of becoming a doctor. And apparently this test, it's called the Step 1 test. It has now been changed as of 2022. It has been changed to a pass-fail test. Once again, they're trying to de-emphasize it, and also they're trying to make the scores that people get on these tests much less meaningful by changing it to just a pass-fail system. Again, do you feel good about going to a doctor or getting surgery by the hand of a doctor who has not gotten there based on merit, but instead because things were dumbed down or made easier, or because they check a certain box? If you look at medical school admissions, it is undeniable. It is undeniable. If you look at the stats on admissions, and Heather McDonald gets into this, but it is undeniable that students from certain demographic groups get a tremendous, tremendous preference in admissions. That doesn't mean that across the board everyone from one demographic is less deserving, but here's the problem, is that when you set conditions where we don't know if someone got the position that they got or was admitted because of their real merit or their race or their gender, right? I mean, if we don't know that, then unfortunately it actually reinforces racist assumptions. And that's why, as a woman, it makes me cringe when I see Delta Airlines or United or American or whatever it was with the picture celebrating its all-female flying crew. Because I know when I'm looking at that picture that what I and everyone else is thinking is, okay, but did they get there based on merit or based on demographics and DEI ideology? And so it devalues genuine achievement. And I've told this story before, I'll tell it again. I'll never forget when I was an undergrad, and one of my favorite professors that I used to chat with in office hours, he was a white, very liberal professor from New York, was frequently getting up on his soapbox about things, political things, back in the day. And so very much what you would think of as a very left progressive individual, right? But I'll never forget, I was complaining to him one time in office hours about another professor in the department who just happened to be black, but was also a terrible professor, the worst professor that I had ever had. And I was complaining to him about that, and he said to me, he said, look, I mean, black professor, obviously an affirmative action hire, like, what do you expect? And he shrugged it off. And I'll never forget, like, having this moment of realization of, like, how this was exactly the mentality created by affirmative action programs and by a DEI mentality. And I, as a woman, don't like that. I want to look at a female airline pilot and think, wow, that is some kind of woman, because I know that she got where she is because she is a great pilot. She's smart, what have you. Not looking at a bunch of women in a cockpit and like, oh, isn't it so cute? Sister power. It's disgusting. I'm sorry, it is. And I say that as someone who's not some trad wife. I don't even have kids. I'm not going to have kids. Sorry, Matt Walsh. I know I'm failing Western civilization, but whatever. Anyway, so that's just a little bit of it. Just talking about admissions. But I want you to understand, I want you to listen to this statistic, okay? 8% of white students with inferior grades, middling grades, and middling to low MCAT scores, 8% of white students were admitted into medical school with that setup. 6% of Asian students were admitted. So as Asian students have been complaining for a while, and this was part of their lawsuit against Harvard, they face more bias even than white students in the admissions process, or at least they did until recently. And then the Supreme Court declared that illegal. But I'm reading that schools are doing all kinds of things still to get around that with holistic grading. So it's not the same as a quota, like we have to have this many of one demographic. But wink, wink, we all know when we're looking at their admissions essay and we see where they refer to their race or their struggles based on their race or gender, we all know that we're gonna give them an edge. Anyway, my point is 8% white students got in with that inferior profile, academic profile. 6% of Asian students. Now, do you want to know how many black students got in? 56% of black students with the same profile in terms of the same MCAT scores and the same grades. So what that tells you is that obviously demographic preferences are being employed. And again, in some fields, this might be something where we can excuse it more readily or overlook it. Like there are preferences to become English professors, generally speaking. But is anybody really losing sleep? Maybe they should be, but losing sleep over whether or not they have the best possible English professor who's gotten there, solely on merit or what have you? No. The stakes just aren't that high. Maybe they should be, but they're not. But we're talking about medicine here. Medicine, and not just medicine. She talks about this as well, Heather McDonald, medical research, and how medical research, even drug pharmaceutical testing, how it's been changed negatively by DEI. I don't have time to talk about it all here. Maybe in another video. She also talks about how money is being redirected away from basic science towards all of these different programs. Programs to study. Why are there so few minorities? Or why don't we have as many women as we want? And study of microaggressions, training for physicians to dismantle white supremacy, all of this. And she asserts that there has been a declining quality of care and a curtailment of scientific progress. She talks about how there's been a minority hiring surge in medicine. So even beyond admissions, even beyond letting students into medical school, and even beyond, it seems, preferences in the residency process, it seems that in hiring in general in the medical field, for physicians and for professors at medical schools, hiring surge in minorities. And again, that would be wonderful if it were based on merit, but we know in a number of those cases, we know what's going on. Not all. Tons of people of minority status and tons of women who get there because they deserve it. But this stuff muddies the water and it makes people afraid, and rightly so, because who wants to get in the seat of an airplane and have to wonder if their pilot got there based on merit or based on demographics, and who wants to go under the scalpel and have to wonder the same thing about their physician? It's true. So this is really, I just have to say, this is like the tip of the iceberg. And I have to tell you, I got a message from a nurse the other day, a traveling nurse who's been in the field for a while. And this person's a traveling nurse, so he or she sees a lot of places, works in a lot of hospitals, what have you, right? Gets a good lay of the land when it comes to what's going on in the medical field on the ground level. And this person told me that DEI has utterly infected many, many aspects of nursing and of medicine, and that it is definitely having a detrimental effect on the quality of healthcare and the quality of healthcare practitioners. And I just invite you, any of you who are in the medical profession at any level, or medical schools or faculty of medical schools or whatever, I invite you, with the safety of anonymity here, to tell us all the truth, and I hope that you will fill up the comments below with your perspectives. And if you're someone who's in the medical field and you think that DEI is great, or you don't think that it's been a big deal, write that too. Everybody, I'm going to link to it below. Go to this article by Heather McDonald, The Corruption of Medicine, but read it and be horrified and spread the word on this, because it's not cool. And again, as a woman, I say it's not good for the perception of women either. I want people to look at a female doctor and say, man, what a smart that is, instead of, is that an affirmative action hire, basically. Okay? All right, check out my stuff. I've talked a lot about DEI. I'm talking a lot about academia. I'm talking about the Bill Ackman blow up recently. So there's a lot of stuff. Check me out, Colonel Kurtz 99. Bye.